Well, this is Timothy Witham. Yesterday, and then day before yesterday, I did a couple movie reviews. I did Devil's Carnival, Sweeney Todd, Crybaby, and Phantom of the Opera, and Repo the Genetic Opera. Um, Today I'm doing another movie musical review. This time I'm doing a Trauma team release movie review. Trauma, in case you don't know, they create a lot of comedy horror movies. They're an independent film company. They created one of the greatest action comedies of all time, which was the Toxic Avenger franchise. They did a four-part movie. There was a rumor that they were going to make a fifth movie, but that has not happened. Now, this movie is called Poultry. It's a comedy horror movie musical. Poultry was directed by Trauma Team Release, and if you don't know about anything about the Trauma Team Release, they do a lot of independent comedy horror movies. Sometimes they do a little bit of action movies. They done a lot of movies. They also did Sergeant Kabuki Man, which is one of my favorites besides the Toxic Avenger. Poetry, guys, I think was the best trauma trauma team release movie since the Toxic Avenger and Kabuki Man. They made some okay films, but I was more into the Toxic Avenger, Sergeant Kabuki Man. Um, I mean, their movies were okay. Poetry Guys Night of the Chicken Dead is a horror comedy musical, which is about a nerdy teen named Artie who is in love with a girl named Wendy. Now, the only problem is that she's in love with another woman. She ends up turning into a lesbian. The things gets more complicated when Artie gets upset and he ends up getting himself hired at a chicken food restaurant due to Wendy and her girlfriend protesting about the chicken restaurant being opened on basically built on Indian burial ground. Um, what ends up happening is the spirits of the the Indians, because it's their burial ground, they get upset because their Indian burial ground is being destroyed, and because the chicken restaurant is built right on the Indian burial ground. And if you've seen the movie by Stephen King, Pet Cemetery, you know it's never a good thing to build anything on Indian burial ground. So this movie is kind of, and they do rip that idea off of Pet Cemetery in a way, but not quite. What ends up happening is the spirits turn anyone who eats the chicken from that restaurant into chicken monsters, which is ends up being hilarious. There's this one scene where this hillbilly guy who works at the restaurant decides he's gonna hump a chicken corpse. He's gonna hump the chicken that he's supposed to be cooking, and he ends up screwing the chicken, and ends up biting his area off, which is hilarious. Well, then in a desperate attempt to save this hillbilly, this one woman sticks a mop, the back end of the mop, up the guy's butt, which goes out the wrong end. And it is hilarious. The most hilarious death scene in this film. There's a whole lot of sick and twisted death scenes in this film. The musical numbers were just great. Everybody knew their part, did the singing well. And the twisted death scenes were just funny as heck, most of them hilarious. In my opinion, this is the best trauma team release movie since the Toxic Avenger and Sergeant Kabuki Man. Um, I also love the movie Death by Dialogue. That was a good Trauma team movie. Trauma's War was really good. I thought. I loved all four of the Toxic Avenger movies. And this film, because it was so great, almost as good as the Toxic Avenger series, I have to give Poultrygeist Night of the Chicken Dead a 5 out of 5 stars. This has been Tim Witham with Musical Movies.